Welcome to the Rewriting Naruto series part 45. This is a series of videos where I rewrite Naruto, making changes to improve the story for my personal taste. If you enjoyed this series, please like. We need those likes. Spread the word around, share the video with your friends that like Naruto or rewrites, and make sure you're subscribed and also ring those notifications because it helps the channel as well. But yeah, liking takes 2 seconds. Just do it. Come on, help me out here. Let's go. Shikamaru, Anko, Choji, and the 3 ninja dogs stood a few meters from Kabuto. They remained still, with battle postures ready. The ancient golden daggers that hovered in a circle behind Kabuto cast an ominous purple glow. The light reflected on Kabuto's glasses, his face, a condescending sneer. "What is it? I thought I was under arrest. Aren't you gonna do it?" "Yeah, right. Like it wouldn't be troublesome at all." Shikamaru held his lighter in front of his face. The yellow fire light clashed against the purple glow. "So I take it we've reached an impasse." "No, I don't think so. You see, if you fight me here, I'll have to kill you. I cannot let you destroy my efforts here. Sure, I could use the 3 of you as well, but I don't need the harvest to come from ninjas. I try to pick as many outcasts and unremarkable people as I could. I bet that for most of them, nobody even noticed their absence. Then again, I had to use a lot of people, so I knew the Leaf would find out about my little operation here." "Screw you!" Anko shot snakes out of her sleeve. Kabuto ignited his chakra scalpel and slashed at them, cutting their heads. As the snake heads hit the ground, they squirted venom from their mouths, which forced Kabuto to jump up to avoid it. The floating daggers followed him, hovering close. Shikamaru ignited a piece of cloth with his lighter and tossed it on the ground. The fire made everyone's shadows grow. "Shadow Suing Jutsu!" Shikamaru weaved a hand sign and his shadow split itself into several tendrils, leaping towards Kabuto, who landed on the cave wall. He dodged the shadow tendril assault as Choji jumped towards him, increasing the size of his fist. Kabuto cut Choji's massive hand as he was throwing a punch, and his chakra scalpel drew a thick string of blood. Choji yelled in pain, but Anko jumped up, once again using her snakes. Kabuto cut them again, using the other hand, so one of the snakes opened its mouth and spat. Not venom this time, but a metallic object. It was one of Asuma's knuckle knives. It missed Kabuto, who smirked as it kicked Choji back to the ground, lifting up dust and dried blood from the death cave. With the knife hit Kabuto's shadow on the wall and paralyzed his movements. "Shadow possession jutsu succeeds," Shikamaru said from below. "I see. This knife is imbued with your jutsu. It can harness the chakra of the user." Kabuto said, but didn't look worried about the paralysis, which disturbed Shikamaru. He steeled himself, and his shadows flared, dark tentacles scurrying through the air. "I'm not taking him as a prisoner. He's too dangerous to be kept alive, and he's not an Akatsuki, so he won't be helpful with intel. My shadow will finish him without pain," Shikamaru thought.
Now that I look at it, that eye really is red like they say. Wow.
Toby said from behind the tree, looking at Kakashi, who just pulled his headband up. He's staring into my Sharingan? Is he actually an idiot? Kakashi thought and cast an ocular genjutsu. It had no effect. It's not that the genjutsu didn't land, but that weird man cowering behind the tree blocked it, which was far more impressive than breaking out of a Sharingan genjutsu. No, he's not an idiot at all. Kakashi tossed a shuriken at him, but he ducked. The metal star hit a tree behind the man.
Please don't kill me! Toby's a good boy, I swear!
He screamed from behind the tree, now out of Kakashi's view. Ninja art. Stunning shuriken. Kakashi weaved a hand sign. A thunderous high-pitched sound erupted from the shuriken that landed on the tree behind Toby, and Kakashi dashed at him, taking his chance after his jutsu disoriented Toby. When Kakashi rounded the tree, ready to strike with his kunai, Toby was no longer there. What? I didn't notice him escaping at all. How is it possible? Kakashi thought, and Pakun jumped next to Kakashi, sniffing the ground. Weird. I can't smell him anywhere. He couldn't have gotten too far in that short of a time, and even if he did, he would at least leave a trail. Then he used some sort of teleportation jutsu. It doesn't matter. We have to go after Sasuke, Kakashi said, and Pakun jumped on his head. Kakashi then resumed his dash toward Team Neji's direction. Who do you think that was? Pakun asked. I don't know, but he's a An open palm appeared out of nowhere. This time Kakashi managed to duck, but the slap hit Pakun, sweeping him off Kakashi's head. The dog grunted in pain and disappeared in white smoke. Kakashi threw a kick at Toby, but the orange masked man bent backwards, avoiding the attack in a funny but surprisingly agile way.
Oh no! I slapped the doggy! I was looking for the fly again. I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to hit him so hard. It's just the flies are really annoying. They make that sound and they eat poo. But I'm sorry.
Toby dashed away, running through the forest, and Kakashi gave chase. He consciously aimed for Pakun as he tried to debilitate my striking ability and using hit and run tactics. So he's trying to delay me. Did Itachi send him so that I couldn't reach Sasuke in time?
Please, Mr. Copy Ninja. I love doggies. I didn't mean to slap him.
Toby said as he kept running, and he was fast. Weirdly so. Kakashi had to give his all just to keep up. Shikamaru's thin shadow tentacles made a high-pitched sound as they cruised the air, ready to strike Kabuto from all sides and kill him. But before the shadow tips pierced him, the golden daggers that hovered close to Kabuto moved on their own accord and cut the tentacles, shearing through the dark shadows. Once they touched the tentacles, the purple energy glow made a sound that reminded Shikamaru of two rusted metal bars scraping against each other, but it also sounded oddly human, like a scream. The daggers moved fast with a swirling motion, and they finished cutting through the shadows before they could reach Kabuto at all. One of them floated down to where Asuma's knuckle knife was sticking to the wall and hit it, yanking it off the wall, freeing Kabuto's body. He smiled and jumped down, but Anko waved signs. Fire style! Phoenix flower jutsu! She spat a volley of small fireballs, but Kabuto didn't bother dodging. Rather, he dashed at Shikamaru's team. The daggers that floated around Kabuto erupted into motion once more and sliced through the streaking clusters of flame, snuffing them out in a split second. Choji stood up, with his knuckles bleeding as Shikamaru and Anko shot their shadows and snakes towards the advancing enemy. However, the swift daggers once more moved without any visible indication from Kabuto and cut through the incoming blows. Snakes' heads fell off once more, and the shadows were destroyed as the daggers kept on screaming that metallic screech. Kabuto reached them, and Shikamaru realized what he intended to do. He had intel on Kabuto. He read the reports about the Tenchi Bridge mission and also the Land of Whirlpools. Kabuto's chakra scalpels were no longer activated, but he was still determined to engage in close quarters. Shikamaru deduced that he meant to use the body pathway derangement jutsu to scramble their nervous systems and render them useless in battle. The same jutsu he used against Hinata in the Tenchi Bridge mission, and the jutsu he probably learned after Lady Tsunade herself used it against him a long time ago. It was a powerful ability that could end the fight as soon as it landed, so Shikamaru couldn't let Kabuto touch any of them. That's all he needed to activate it. Shikamaru waved a hand sign. Shadow Possession Field! His shadows expanded on the ground itself, covering a much larger area than normal, and advanced towards Kabuto's location, creating a literal field of shadow. If my shadow is on the ground, those knives won't be able to cut it like they can cut through the tendrils. Kabuto saw the incoming shadow, and as he was about to engage Choji and Taijutsu, he jumped back before it could paralyze him, the 6 daggers flying after his body. Wait, do not engage him in close quarters, Shikamaru told his team. The Shadow Possession Field is slower than the tendrils, but if If he steps on it, he'll be paralyzed, and the daggers won't be able to save him, like they could when I used Asuma's dagger. Still, he can control those daggers with his mind without hand signs, and he's only using them for defense. He didn't attack any of us with them, and they all remained in a steady radius from him, about 5 meters at all times, so there's probably a range limit. I wonder what would happen if we yanked those daggers out of the radius. Perhaps they would just become useless to him. Listen, we cannot let him get close to us. The daggers have a set range, and he wants to use the body pathway derangement to beat us. We're not taking him in. Eliminate him if you have the chance. As expected from the genius Shikamaru. However, Kabuto weaved a forbidden hand seal. It wouldn't be fair if we just enjoy this celebration by ourselves. The thousands of corpses that crowded the cave snapped into motion, cracking bones and ripping rotted muscle. They rose in unison, much faster than Shikamaru thought possible. Even the ones behind Kabuto on the lab table stood up. They all stared at the leaf Tim with grim, whitened out eyes. Now this is a proper welcoming party. Sakura, we really don't have to fight. I honestly don't want to hurt you. Suigetsu told her, holding the executioner's blade in front of him with a swollen arm. The city around them was deserted and damaged from the fight between Sakura and Karin. The latter remained a bloody mess in a small crater behind Suigetsu. We don't have to fight if you tell me where Sasuke is. Sakura's stomach wound was closed, but her clothes were drenched in blood, and she had almost no chakra left. Just let us go, you're pretty hurt. I don't want to make things worse. Sasuke wouldn't like that at all. Guess I'll have to punch the answer out of you then. Sakura dashed at Suigetsu, her white cloak flapping in the wind. Suigetsu sighed and flipped his massive sword 180 degrees, swinging the blunt edge. Sakura dodged it, but the sword kept her at a distance. Suigetsu threw wide swings, but Sakura advanced, timing them properly and forcing Suigetsu to retreat. Seriously, Sakura, this is stupid! Suigetsu kept swinging, making sure Sakura wouldn't hit him, so she jumped back and tossed 3 kunai at Suigetsu, who blocked with the side of his blade. Not budging at all, huh? I guess you are as stubborn as Sasuke. Well, I guess I'll use this fight to confirm my theory. Sakura dashed again. Suigetsu committed an upward strike towards Sakura, but it completely missed her. This opened Suigetsu's guard as the sword rose, giving Sakura the perfect chance to strike. She landed a massive punch to his face as the upward swinging motion of his sword made the curved tip of the blade catch on Sakura's cloak, ripping it out of her. At the same time, her fist exploded Suigetsu's face, and for a split second, Sakura was shocked at her own brutality. But then she realized it exploded into water, not blood. A water clone? No, only the head turned into water. A headless Suigetsu jumped backwards, disengaging from the fight as his face began to reform itself from water. He flicked his sword, untangling Sakura's ripped cloak, which flew away in the wind. Very well then, step 1 of my plan is complete. Suigetsu smirked. Plan? What is he trying to do? Did he put something on me? Sakura thought as she touched around her body looking for something weird like a paper bomb, but she couldn't find anything, so she dashed once more. This time Suigetsu didn't even bother dodging her strike. As Sakura hit him in the chest, it turned into water again, splashing her, and her fist dug into his ribcage, entering a cavity of cool water. Physical attacks don't work against me. I'm the worst possible opponent for you. His whole body became water and passed through Sakura, and Suigetsu reformed himself behind her. He crouched and had one hand on his chin as he stared up at Sakura in intense thought. As I suspected, Sasuke is an S-type. Huh? What are you looking at, you pervert? Sakura swirled around and kicked Suigetsu on the side of his head with the back of her foot. His head exploded once more and reformed. The kick did not bother Suigetsu at all. Rather, he had a triumphant smile on his face. You have no chance, Karin. Her bottom is at least 4.7 times more bulbous than yours. You ripped my cloak to stare at my butt? Sakura punched again, turning Suigetsu into water. Yeah, that was my plan. I had to confirm it. Now I know what kind of man Sasuke is. Sakura yelled in anger and unleashed a barrage of attacks. I'll kill that idiot. But first, I'll kill that slut. A toothless Karin murmured in the crater. She put a limp hand deep into her mouth, finding a molar tooth that was still half attached to her gum and bit, activating her healing ninjutsu on herself. Choji, ninja dogs, you take care of the undead. Be careful with the explosions. Anko and I will fight Kabuto. Shikamaru yelled. I expect him to use the bodies, but this much at the same time? Shikamaru thought, and Choji turned around, facing the dashing horde. He weaved a hand seal, expanding his body into the form of a massive ball, and rolled towards them with an insane rotation speed. Anko weaved seals once more and spat fire. This time, however, she spat a line of flame that landed before Kabuto, and once it hit the ground, a wall of fire rose. The bodies that were behind Kabuto dashed through it and burned. The smell of their flesh inundated the cave, and they fell as blobs of fire and muscle. Shikamaru picked Asuma's knuckle knife and looked at Kabuto at the same time Choji impacted the horde of bodies. His meat tank opened the way, crushing dozens and flinging dozens more to the sides as the speeding balls zigzagged in the cave. The three ninja dogs came from behind, hacking and slashing through the undead as well. Kabuto moved, but before he could leave the range of the firewall, Anko weaved another sign. Fire style, sintering chamber! The firewall surrounded Kabuto, making a circle, and began to close above him, trapping him into the fire chamber. Shikamaru tossed 5 paper bomb kunais towards the inferno, but 4 golden daggers emerged from the fire and blocked them, still keeping within the 5-meter range from Kabuto. The 2 remaining daggers sliced the fire itself above Kabuto, creating a hole in the chamber, which he jumped through, exiting the fire as the 4 paper bombs exploded below. Kabuto landed upside down on the cave ceiling, and 5 thick snakes erupted from it, straight out of the rock, surrounding Kabuto from all sides. Anko inserted them on the ground, and they traveled through the rock until they reached the ceiling, while Kabuto was in the fire. But instead of attacking Kabuto with their fangs, the 5 snakes spat a wide burst of venom, creating a cloud with Kabuto at the center, which forced him to jump back down to the cave ground. However, once he did that, the ground didn't resemble rock anymore. It was darkness itself. Shikamaru had spread his shadow possession field to a larger area, covering any possible spot Kabuto could land. Once Kabuto understood the trap, 2 daggers floated to his hands, and he grabbed them midair, stopping his momentum and avoiding the shadow below. Kabuto winced when he grabbed the daggers, and Shikamaru also noticed something else. Kabuto didn't grasp the blades themselves. Rather, his hands touched the purple aura that covered the blades. It was almost as though the aura served as a barrier and didn't let the dagger itself touch Kabuto's skin. But why did he wince? Shikamaru thought. Fire style! Flame bullets! Anko spat a darting orb of fire at Kabuto, who still hovered midair, holding the daggers by their aura. Before the fire reached him, the daggers erupted into motion, and Kabuto used their speed to swing himself towards the cave wall, letting go of the daggers. Shikamaru predicted that. He was already extending his shadow to cover the ground and the walls of the cave. The only problem was that the thinner he spread his shadow, the weaker its grasp became, and the chakra cost increased exponentially as the size of the shadow possession field increased. Kabuto saw that, and once again used the daggers to hold himself midair. Before he landed on the wall, Anko spat another fire bullet. This time, one of the daggers sliced through it, but Shikamaru kept on expanding his shadow, sending it to the ceiling as well, making it impossible for Kabuto to land anywhere in that section of the cave. It was a big corner where Kabuto's lab was, and Anko and Shikamaru blocked his way out of that section where Choji and the dogs were fighting against the undead. They created a perimeter so that the undead couldn't reach Anko and Shikamaru, and now Kabuto couldn't touch any surfaces of that section of the cave. He had to keep flying, grasping the daggers, which caused him a great deal of discomfort. This terrain really favors your jutsu, Kabuto said, wincing and looking around at the all-consuming shadow. Why is it so painful for him to hold the daggers like that? Is the purple aura damaging his hand? No, the hands look fine. It doesn't look like that chakra is entering his body either. It has to be something else. At that moment, Shikamaru's mind raced, trying to understand, connecting points. Kabuto told them before that he wasn't harvesting chakra with the knives, but something much more valuable. The sounds the daggers made also didn't resemble chakra. They could cut through chakra easily, slashing Shikamaru's shadow, Anko's fire style ninjutsu, and her snakes, which were all made of chakra. The purple aura ignored it and allowed the blades to pass through them without a problem. But when Kabuto grasped daggers, he didn't touch them to stay midair. He touched the aura instead. Maybe it's not because he doesn't want to touch them, but because he simply can't. He's also not using the daggers to attack us directly, meaning that the purple aura creates a field that doesn't let the blades themselves touch us. But it can be because of our chakra, seeing how well they cut through our ninjutsu. It can't be because of our consistency either, because Anko's snakes, even though they're made out of chakra, resemble human flesh. So what's the difference between us and the things the daggers can cut? Shikamaru felt cold as he realized what Kabuto was doing with the knives. It was far far worse than just killing those people. You sealed their souls into the daggers, didn't you? Through a face of pain, Kabuto smirked. Keeping souls in the physical plane after their death is unnatural, so the cluster of souls that's embedded in the daggers creates that aura that repels external natural souls. That's why you can't touch them directly or use the daggers to attack us. The blades cannot harm beings with souls. You're wincing too. I bet you can hear the people you kill screaming as you grasp the daggers. You are very smart, Kabuto said, still holding the daggers to avoid Shikamaru's shadow field. He sealed the souls? He's killing them and not even letting them move on? You should know this, Anko. Repairing a shattered soul is an extremely arduous and costly process. What do you mean repair? He means to repair Orochimaru's soul that the third Hokage splinter with a Reaper death seal. We have to get those blades out of his hands and fight a way to release those poor souls. And I can't keep this massive shadow field for too long. Anko spat fire, unleashing her rage. But the four remaining blades that floated around Kabuto cut through the fire bullets. It's time for their purpose to become complete, Kabuto said, letting go of the daggers for a second, weaving a hand sign and grabbing them again to stay in the air. Choji ran through the undead in his ball form, ping-ponging around the cave walls, ground, and ceiling. But then, a group of 10 bodies exploded, sending him flying in the opposite direction of his friends. The undead that the 3 ninja dogs were fighting exploded as well, which launched the dogs against the cave wall with burnt fur. They disappeared in white smoke. The rest of the horde dashed towards Shikamaru and Anko, no longer contained by the perimeter Choji and the dogs created. Anko spat another firewall, this time towards the undead, but they simply charged through it, overwhelmed it, eventually snuffing out the fire. Anko spat more fire bullets towards them, exploding several of the undead in the process, but they wouldn't stop. It was just too many of them. Shikamaru expanded his shadow field even more, now stretching it behind their position in the cave where the undead were coming from. Once it reached them, they were paralyzed, but the army of undead kept coming, forcing Shikamaru to focus more and more of his chakra into the shadow field, and Anko trying to destroy as many as she could with her fire. But eventually, they also overwhelmed Shikamaru's shadow, which imploded, his shadow returning to its regular shape, and the undead surrounded Shikamaru and Anko as Kabuto could finally let go of the daggers, landing on the cave ground and dashed back. Shikamaru and Anko used their taijutsu to hack and destroy several of the undead, but the horde was simply too great, and they were completely surrounded. Shikamaru then saw the face of Choji, his old friend, who made his way through the horde while they were focused on Shikamaru and Anko, trying to help them, but it was too late. As though they were of a single mind, all remaining undead exploded in unison, destroying the cave walls and sending a shockwave that erupted out of the mountain's bowels and hit the forest below, bending the trees hundreds of meters beneath. Sakura lost count of how many attacks she had landed on Suigetsu. It didn't matter how hard she punched or how fast she kicked, his body would dissolve itself into water and then reform itself. He's like that Akatsuki woman who could transform her body into paper. I couldn't land any proper attacks, and this time I don't even have chakra for genjutsu anymore, and I only beat that Akatsuki woman because I got lucky before. I have no counter for it, damn it! Where are Kiba and Shino? I have to keep stalling until they arrive. Alright, Sakura, I think that's enough. Sorry, but I'll have to be rough. Suigetsu said, brandishing his blade with full force now, but still using the blunt end to attack. However, Sakura caught the blade, palming it, and stopping the sword from hitting her. Even though both of Suigetsu's arms were now swollen, she matched his strength. Damn, she really is strong. He let go of his sword with one hand and pointed his index finger to Sakura's leg. A thin drop of water formed on its tip, and Suigetsu shot it. The water bullet crossed Sakura's thigh on a descending angle and exited the leg, hitting the ground behind her as a string of blood emerged from the wound. Sakura realized Suigetsu avoided major blood vessels, but she didn't have time to dodge. Hot pain flashed in her leg and she stumbled. Suigetsu used that moment to yank his sword out of Sakura's grasp and disengage from the fight, heading to the crater where Karin laid in, but Sakura dashed at him again, limping. Oh, come on, seriously? I don't want to hurt you anymore, Suigetsu said as Sakura punched his face to no effect once again. He poked her shoulder with his index finger and shot another water drop at point-blank range. The drop of water mixed with blood emerged from behind Sakura's shoulder, and she winced in pain, noticing that her arm, just like her leg, were neutralized. The water attack cut tendons and ripped muscle. The pain from her leg wound and the precision of the attack made her lose her strength, forcing her to kneel. She had lost a fight to someone who wasn't even trying. I'm gonna go grab that stupid girl and leave. Don't worry, you'll see Sasuke again, Suigetsu said with a smile. But when he turned away, away from Sakura and looked at Karin's crater, he saw an ominous shadow in the middle of it. Karin, she was standing. "Oh no, she will never see Sasuke again!" Karin yelled, unleashing an adamantine chain towards Sakura, who saw it coming, but her leg was compromised. She couldn't get out of the way in time, and the chain was aiming for her heart. Suigetsu slashed at it with his great sword, creating a metallic echo that made the hairs on the back of Sakura's neck stand up. The chain got deflected, hitting the wall of a building on the side of the street. "We're not supposed to kill any leaf ninjas. Those were Sasuke's orders," Suigetsu said. "He won't mind if just one dies. Get out of my way, Suigetsu." No. Sakura didn't know what was more surprising, the fact that her enemy was protecting her, or the fact that Karin's teeth had regenerated completely. Regular healing ninjutsu couldn't do that, so her abilities were on another level. She was still drenched in her own blood. Her clothes were ragged and her glasses were cracked, but her body was in perfect condition. "I'm not gonna say it again. I'm killing her. It'll be better for him if she dies, so she won't interfere with his vengeance anymore." Karin was fully expecting Suigetsu to make a snide remark about how she loved Sasuke and couldn't let go of anything. He was not the guy to ever take anything seriously, but this time he looked back at Sakura's face, apprehensive and fearful. It reminded him of somebody else, and his demeanor changed. For the first time, Karin saw a look of genuine anger and determination on him that made her recoil. Still, chains emerged from her. She would get past Suigetsu and kill that girl. "You're not killing her, and I'll kill you if I have to." Suigetsu pointed his blade to Karin, assuming the Wrath swordsman stance, where he raised the blade above his head. Both his arms were much more swollen than before. He hadn't assumed that stance since before he left his old village. This fight he would be taking seriously. Darkness surrounded Shikamaru. He couldn't see anything. Surely he was dead. With all those bodies exploding on him, this had to be whatever afterlife was. But then he touched something and heard Anko's voice. "We're alive?" she asked. The darkness faded, and Shikamaru realized that what covered the firelight coming from the cave was Choji's massive form. He activated his expansion jutsu at the last second and used his body as a shield, curling himself around and above Shikamaru and Anko to protect them from the explosion. His Akimichi armor was broken, and his entire body was singed as Choji returned to his normal size. "Choji, are you alright?" Surprisingly, he stood up with some difficulty, but smiled. "My skin gets really thick when I increase my size like that. I'm all good." It clearly wasn't though, as Choji puked blood right after he said that. Shikamaru was aghast. "We have to take you to Sakura Ina right now." Anko wrapped his stake around Shikamaru's waist and yanked him out of his position. Kabuto emerged from the ground, slashing his chakra scalpel at him. Anko managed to save him just in time. The 6 golden daggers emerged from the hole Kabuto made on the ground as well. Damn it, I was so distracted by Choji's condition that I lowered my guard. Of course he would burrow underground to avoid the explosion, Shikamaru thought. He had read reports saying that Kabuto was quite skilled at that ability. He couldn't let himself get distracted now. Kabuto didn't have enough time to build an emergency exit for the cave. Still, he could just have waited underground or used the chance to escape. However, he realized that Shikamaru could become a problem in the future for Lord Orochimaru's goals. It was better to kill him now that he had a chance than to let him become more powerful as a shinobi and gain more power within the intelligence of the Leaf Village. Silencing the whole team with him would also be preferable. Though Kabuto wasn't sure if the undead managed to kill the dogs before they were unsummoned, meaning that the secret could already be out, the dogs certainly didn't know as much as Shikamaru and his team did, as they were distracted by the horde. "I underestimated that fatso. I thought for sure that they would be all dead with the explosion," Kabuto thought, as large rocks fell from the cave ceiling and cracks began to form and expand around them. After the great impact of the explosion, the cave would soon collapse. Team Shikamaru erupted into motion. Anko spat fire while Shikamaru launched a regular ground shadow, not before tossing Asuma's knuckle knives to Choji. Kabuto's daggers began to move, cutting through Anko's fire bullets, and Kabuto dashed away, dodging Shikamaru's shadow possession. Choji expanded his size, and with him, Asuma's knives. Choji infused his chakra into them, imbuing them with the properties of his jutsu. He slashed with the now massive blades, which allowed him to keep some distance from Kabuto so that Kabuto couldn't use his scrambling jutsu. Snakes erupted from the ground behind Kabuto, spitting jets of venom, but Kabuto got out of the way. He was slippery and slided backwards as his daggers cut through Anko's flames, but Shikamaru appeared from behind. "What? He's engaging me in close quarters?" Kabuto looked back, and Shikamaru's shadows flared into tentacles that dashed to Kabuto as the golden daggers readied themselves to cut the shadows again. But this time, the tentacles changed directions. As the daggers were about to cut them, they wrapped themselves around the daggers instead of trying to reach Kabuto Kabuto, holding them in place. My shadows are stronger and faster the closer they are to me. I can hold those daggers in place if I'm here. Kabuto commanded the daggers to move, but Shikamaru didn't let them. The shadow tendrils held them mid-air, but as Shikamaru deduced, the shadow could touch the blade itself. Kabuto then moved to touch Shikamaru. Shikamaru had to keep his hand sealed up to contain the daggers, so he was defenseless, but Anko's snakes came from the opposite side, darting towards Kabuto. He was forced to activate his scalpels and slashed at them. Choji came rushing next. He swung Asuma's massive blades at Kabuto, forcing him to jump away this time. The golden dagger stopped trying to force the ray out of Shikamaru's shadow grip. Though Kabuto left the effective range of control, they still gave off the purple aura. Anko readied herself to launch another attack, weaving hand signs. He never had a chance to apologize, Anko. That's such a pity, Kabuto said, and that made Anko halt her incoming attack and stop for a second. Kabuto tossed a kunai with a wire attached to a dozen paper bombs, not towards them, but at a large crack that was growing on the cave ceiling. The paper bombs exploded, which accelerated the collapse of the cave. Shikamaru had to move out of the way of the falling rocks, bringing the daggers that he still gripped with his tendrils. The ground beneath Choji then cracked with violence because of his increased weight, making him stumble and fall. Kabuto used that chance to dash at Choji, avoiding falling rocks, and touched his thigh. Choji felt an inner shock. He tried to stand up fast, but his body spasmed in weird ways. He tried to move his legs. The other parts of his body moved instead. Anko shook her head, trying to establish her focus, and launched an attack to Kabuto, but he slashed at her snakes barely after they emerged from her sleeve, touching her chest. She also lost her movements, falling down in complete disarray. Shikamaru ran towards them, understanding the awful situation they were in, with their nervous systems disrupted. He still used his shadow possession to restrain the daggers, so that Kabuto wouldn't be able to get control over them again. But as he got close, Kabuto launched another paper bomb kunai at the ceiling, above Anko and Choji, making more rocks fall. Damn it, I barely have any chakra left, Shikamaru thought. Having no choice, he let go of the daggers, which fell to the ground, and used his shadows to protect his team instead. The dark tendrils grasped the falling rocks before they could touch them, and tossed them away. Kabuto dashed to Shikamaru, who in turn deactivated his tendrils, and expanded his shadow into a shadow possession field. It wasn't fast enough, however. Kabuto didn't mean to touch Shikamaru. He just wanted to get in range from the daggers to regain control over them, and he did. The daggers left the ground and hovered around Kabuto once more, as he dashed back before the shadow possession field could reach him. More rocks fell, and Shikamaru was forced to use his jutsu to protect his comrades. Choji's signs returned to normal, but the cave was going to collapse any time now. So Shikamaru tossed a barrage of kunais with flashbang charges attached to them against Kabuto. They erupted into light once Kabuto blocked them with his daggers. The flash, however, expanded Anko and Choji's shadows, connecting them to Shikamaru's, who used his shadow possession jutsu on his allies to control them with his ability, overriding Kabuto's pathway derangement on them, and dashed out of the cave together, which had now become a tempest of falling stones. Kabuto left the cave, and Shikamaru left it soon after him, taking his team with, emerging on the outside, leaving the crumbling cave of death behind. Kabuto stood on the side of the mountain wall as Shikamaru ran on the opposite direction. Still controlling his friends, he had to retreat. Anko and Choji were in no condition to fight. They could direct their chakra to the soles of their feet and attach themselves to the mountain wall, but Shikamaru was the one moving their bodies, with their shadows attached to his. And the worst part was that Shikamaru would run out of chakra any second now. Kabuto gave chase as they ran on the mountain wall, and luckily for him, Shikamaru found a flatter section of the mountain, jumping towards it as he ran out of chakra and his shadow possession faded. He landed on the tall mountain plateau as Anko and Choji fell and scraped against the ground, unable to control their bodies. Shikamaru grabbed Asuma's knuckle knives from Choji. He winced, seeing his friend like that, bleeding, burned, and paralyzed. Anko's situation was pretty much the same, and without chakra, Shikamaru was in a world of trouble. Kabuto reached their location. The daggers flying behind him kept on leaking their soul aura. He seemed oddly fresh. It was almost as though controlling those daggers demanded no chakra of him. Well, I guess this is it, Shikamaru Nara. You'll be joining your sensei soon enough. Shikamaru rose the knuckle knives and assumed Asuma's classic fighting stance. Holding them like that gave him a sliver of hope in this desperate situation, as though Asuma himself would help them survive like he did so many times before. There were things Shikamaru still had to do. He had to protect the king. No, you'll be the one joining your master in the depths of hell. Kabuto dashed at him, activating his chakra scalpels. They clashed, chakra blades against knuckle knives. Shikamaru could match Kabuto's speed and counter his offensive after analyzing his attacks. But the golden daggers also assisted Kabuto, parrying some of Shikamaru's strikes. The daggers could touch the knuckle knives. They went nowhere. Shikamaru was was fighting defensively, making sure he wouldn't be hit, even without chakra, forcing him to keep on spending his, as the scalpels demanded a chakra expenditure. Eventually, Kabuto deactivated them and grabbed 2 curved kunais from his satchel instead. Shikamaru tried to slash at Kabuto as he grabbed the kunais, but the floating daggers kept him at bay, blocking Asuma's knives. They clashed again. The metal blades sparked as they hit each other. Shikamaru stumbled back after Kabuto threw a low kick, and Kabuto slashed, but Shikamaru blocked with Asuma's knife. However, Kabuto bent his arm and landed an elbow strike to Shikamaru's chest, dropping him down. As that happened, Shikamaru realized that Kabuto had used the pathway derangement to scramble his nervous system. You fought well, but the deck was stacked against you, and I so happened to be a more intelligent player. 1 month ago. After Asuma's death, Shikamaru decided to push himself harder than ever before. He wouldn't slack off anymore. He would learn everything he could from all high-profile missions, amass as much knowledge as he possibly could, develop his chakra, improve his jutsus. That was the least he could do after Asuma's final words. He may have destroyed Hidan, but more powerful enemies from the Akatsuki and otherwise were bound to appear. It was late in the evening and Shikamaru read the reports from the Tenchi Bridge mission assignment in his bedroom. He read the description of Hinata and Sakura's fight against Kabuto when a jutsu that Kabuto used caught his attention. Body pathway derangement. Scrambles nervous system's bodily controls. Hinata managed to overpower it through chakra control alone, but she was likely only able to do that because of her Hyuga chakra control. The only other way to counter the jutsu was to memorize the wrong pathways and move the wrong sections of your body according to the correct ones you wish to move. That was what Kabuto did when I used the jutsu against him. It requires extreme memorization skills and quick thinking. Lady Tsunade wrote that section of the report herself. The next day, Shikamaru came by Tsunade's office. Lady Tsunade, I was reading about the body pathway derangement jutsu. Is there a specific pattern for the nervous system's derangement? Well, actually, yes. The way the jutsu works, it only affects the nervous system one particular way every single time. Why? I read what you wrote about Kabuto countering it by memorizing all the pathways in a few seconds. I was just wondering if I could do the same. Tsunade smiled. Well, you could certainly try. She stood up and used the jutsu on him. It took Shikamaru a few seconds, testing out body parts until he found out all combinations and managed to do the same thing as Kabuto did, moving freely. It was weird and he was certainly not as fast, but he could still move. Oh wow, that was faster than Kabuto. I like that. You're really trying to get stronger, aren't you, Shikamaru? Shikamaru waited for Kabuto to turn around. Unbeknownst to his enemy, Shikamaru could move freely, for he had memorized all the wrong pathways beforehand. As a matter of fact, Shikamaru meant to get caught with a jutsu so that he could catch Kabuto off guard, thinking that the fight was over. Once Kabuto looked at Anko and was about to yap something condescending, Shikamaru erupted into motion, as though the jutsu didn't even affect him. He stabbed at the back of Kabuto's neck, using Asuma's blade. Kabuto managed to raise his hand in time, covering his nape, and block the attack, but the blade impaled his palm, squirting blood on Kabuto's neck, and the tip of the blade cut the back of Kabuto's head. Shikamaru swung the other blade, but now the hovering daggers all flew towards it, blocking the attack. He twisted around, drawing Shikamaru's hand that was stabbing his own hand down, but Shikamaru sliced through Kabuto's palm, shearing through it. Kabuto winced, and now for the first time he commanded his hovering daggers to strike Shikamaru. They came from all sides, so it was impossible to dodge. What? I thought he couldn't touch me with those things, Shikamaru thought, as the knives hit him. His assumption, however, was correct. The purple aura prevented the daggers from piercing Shikamaru, acting as a force field around the blades. But that wasn't the reason why Kabuto attacked. For when the soul auras touched Shikamaru, an explosion of screams of agonizing pain and desperation flooded his mind, as if an army of lost souls screamed from within his brain itself. Shikamaru focused, trying to ignore the screaming. He dodged a kunai slash from Kabuto, but then got kicked in the knee, dropping to the ground. Kabuto tossed a kunai, which Shikamaru blocked with Asuma's knife, and Kabuto grunted in frustration, but then smiled. He turned around, activating his chakra scalpel, and moved towards Choji, who was helpless on the ground, unable to move and even talk. If you're that stubborn, then the fatso will go first. Shikamaru ignored everything, the screams of pain in his mind, the daggers pushing against him, the pain on his now broken knee. He powered through everything, tossing knives at Kabuto, trying to catch him from behind, but the golden daggers flew close to him and blocked the strikes. Shikamaru ran. Throwing projectiles now wouldn't work. The daggers would block them. He had to tackle Kabuto, but Kabuto had already raised his scalpel with his good hand. Tackling him wouldn't be enough. He wouldn't stop the motion of the strike, and Shikamaru wouldn't even get there in time. The same desperation from the day Asuma died overtook Shikamaru. He was in the exact same situation. He ran desperately, uselessly, as a comrade was about to be slayed. Not this time. He had one final trick he could play. It would give him speed to let him reach Choji in time. A trick he learned because of the situation he was when Asuma died. 8 inner gates release. First gate. The gate of opening. Open! Shikamaru felt his muscles ripping. He could only keep the first gate open for a few seconds, but that didn't matter. He gained speed. He had to reach Choji before Kabuto killed him. But what would he do after that? It didn't matter. One step at a time. First, he had to save Choji. Kabuto's blade descended on Choji's lying body as Shikamaru ran faster than ever before. Make it in time! Make it in time! Kabuto's scalpel struck flesh, cutting bone, and it splattered a gust of blood. Team Neji jumped from tree to tree. We're getting closer to Sasuke. He's still checking possible hideouts, Neji said, observing with his Byakugan. Tenten, how much longer? Lee asked. Almost there for the first stage, Tenten said. She had been weaving hand signs for several minutes non-stop, and now she finally finished the sequence. Summoning Jutsu! A massive scroll, larger than Tenten herself and clad in thick metal, appeared in her hands. She had to make an effort just to hold it up due to its weight. Tenten then touched her palm on a specific section of the scroll, emitting her chakra into it. Glyphs around the metal began to glow. The scroll floated, following right behind Tenten as they kept on jumping through the forest as fast as they could to intercept Sasuke. Alright, now I have to remove the ceilings, Tenten said, and began to weave hand signs again. Shikamaru's right arm fell on the ground next to him. Kabuto's scalpel cleaved right through it, almost at the shoulder. His detached hand was still holding Asuma's knife. You used the inner gates to reach me, didn't you? Shikamaru felt his knees, the recoil of the gates taking full effect. You didn't even try to attack me because you knew the daggers would block it, and I would still continue my swinging motion. So you used your body as a shield, just like he did against my explosion. Very noble. Blood gushed from Shikamaru's stump. Oddly enough, he didn't feel any pain there. His muscles were much worse. He raised his hand and tried to stop the bleeding, but Shikamaru was already getting dizzy. Kabuto kicked Shikamaru in the face, tossing him to the ground next to Choji. Rest assured, your deaths will not be in vain. Your souls will be part of Lord Orochimaru once he returns. So one could say you will have the most honorable death of all. A golden dagger hovered to each of the 3 fallen leaf ninjas. They were all paralyzed and couldn't do anything about it. Once the daggers reached them, their minds were flooded with the agonizing screams of the trapped souls. And this time, Kabuto began to force the daggers in, right at their hearts. Slowly but surely, the purple aura gave, and the golden metal got closer to the skin. Choji and Anko screamed as Shikamaru tried to think of anything he could do in the situation. There was nothing. Just like in the fight against Hayuya, the only way he could survive the situation was if someone saved him and his team. Through the screams of pain, a memory flashed in Anko's mind from years ago. Orochimaru-sensei, you're back! A young Anko said, happy to see her sensei after a long and difficult mission.
I am, my dear, and I have a little gift for you.
Really? She was ecstatic. Anko loved Orochimaru-sensei's gifts. He grasped her gently by the chin and raised her head so her eyes would meet his. Anko was always deferential to Orochimaru-sensei. Looking into his eyes was not something she had the courage to do most times.
You'll be the first to ever have it, my dear. You're the most special of them all. Never let them say anything different.
Orochimaru leaned in, and Anko got scared. Was he going to kiss her? Anko didn't know if she liked that. She did have strong feelings for Orochimaru-sensei, but right now, with no warning? Orochimaru, however, missed her mouth and kissed her in the neck instead. What was that? It was a weird feeling. A feeling of pain. So much pain. He was biting her, and it wasn't just a bite. Something was entering her. Something strange. Something powerful. The young Anko screamed, but the older one on the ground stopped. Anko swore she would never use that power again, but if she didn't do it now, the very same man who bestowed her that curse could return. Kabuto controlled the knives and forced them in. As the golden tip already pierced their chests, he would extract their souls and seal them in the daggers. He would then move to another spot, perhaps outside the line of fire, and continue the process until the daggers had amassed enough souls. A shockwave dropped Kabuto Kabuto to the ground. He felt pressure hitting him, and not understanding what happened, he stood up and saw something quite unexpected. Purple chakra swirled around Anko. The chakra eruption had yanked the daggers out of her and the other two, and somehow she stood up. So the nature chakra flooding her system was enough to overpower the body pathway derangement. That was good to know. The thin and linear pattern of her first curse mark stage inundated her body until they all closed together. Kabuto recalled the daggers back to him and stared at the raging purple chakra, which ripped Anko's cloak and overcoat completely. Second stage out of the gate? And I thought you would never use the curse mark again after what you did. Guess I was wrong. Watch part 46 of the rewrite right here. Please like this video, let us reach 4,000 likes, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Also ring those notifications so you'll never miss any rewrites, and comment below what you thought about this part. Thank you so much for watching.